if you look at what's going on in LA, it shows exactly what Biden and the Democrats did by opening their borders the way they did and allowing people to come, millions and millions and millions of people coming in here unvetted. They've caused all this. So there's never room for violence. So I think President Trump is doing what he said he was going to do on the campaign trail. He's going to keep the country safe. So if that means calling up the National Guard, that's what he's going to do. So I think it tells you exactly what, and this is what Americans want. I can just tell you, in my state, they don't want these riots. They don't want people burning cars. They don't want people blocking highways. They don't want people spitting on police or throwing rocks at police. So I think the president's doing exactly what he should be doing.
Would you support the president federalizing the National Guard in your state, or a future president, maybe a Democrat?
So if absolutely, absolutely. If the governor of my state's not, and the mayors are not keeping our state safe, absolutely. That's exactly what the president has to do. He said he was going to keep the country safe, and the Democrats caused all this. But in my state, we have great sheriffs, we have great law enforcement. I don't believe this could happen in my state because our sheriffs would not let it happen.
Chief of the Los Angeles Police, the mayor, and the governor all say we've got this under control. It is unfortunate and unnecessary to mobilize U.S. Marines who are training for the Pacific, not for the streets of Los Angeles. It is, of course, important that anyone who attacks police officers or sets fire to vehicles or carries out vandalism be interrupted and arrested. And I support peaceful protest. It's the foundation in many ways to our nation. It's guaranteed in our Constitution. But bluntly, at the end of the day, much of this is a distraction generated by our reality TV president. Last week, every one of you was asking me about the fight between Elon Musk and Trump and how Musk was denouncing the big, beautiful bill as a debt and deficit buster, and how a few nervous Republicans were recognizing that taking health care away from 16 million Americans was a really bad idea. No one's asking me about that this week. You're only asking me about Los Angeles. It is a critical issue, how folks respond to Trump's immigration enforcement and whether or not he's overreaching by federalizing the National Guard. I'm not diminishing the significance of the issue, but it's a reminder that here in the Senate, what is right in front of us is the so-called big, beautiful bill, which will have consequences for millions of Americans in terms of increasing hunger and decreasing access to health care.
Look, we've got a wolf problem in Los Angeles. These are not peaceful protesters. They're wolves. They're hurting people. They're destroying private property. They're destroying public property. They're wolves. You say, well, Gavin Newsom says, well, I can handle it. Governor Newsom is a sheep. Governor Newsom believes that cops are a bigger problem than criminals. Then the mayor of Los Angeles says, well, I can handle it. The mayor is a sheep. Okay? More sheep is not going to solve the wolf problem. The federal government has sent in troops, and I think it was absolutely necessary.
I am struck by the use of Marines who have no real apparent training in crowd control or riot action. I think it's a disservice to the Marines to have them in this situation where they are untrained, unready, unequipped for this kind of mission. And there are local police as well as state law enforcement who are much better trained and equipped to do this kind of law enforcement function. Marines don't do policing. They do warrior fighting in combat. And this situation is not about combat, it's about crowd control. It's a disservice to the Marines. I'm really disappointed, and I think the Navy has a lot to answer for.
The chief of police at LAPD said they were overwhelmed. Governor Newsom's doing nothing. So someone's going to have to protect the citizens of LA, and so I'm proud that the president is making sure the Marines are there to protect the property, so these rioters can't keep destroying people's innocent property.
And what does this portend for 2026 World Cup, 2028 Olympics, these major events in LA, for how LA is going to be able to handle them and how the government intervenes?
Well, because since it's an international event, I'm sure the government's going to be a lot more involved in it. It's not the capital. I mean, what we've been seeing is the chief of police of LAPD is doing the best he can. It's the lack of leadership above him that's prohibited him from doing his job. And I think with the response that the president is doing is correct. And I think we're going to be just fine for the World Cup and the Olympics.
We have stressed repeatedly, and we're going to do it again, the need for non-violent protest. If there is going to be free expression, it has to be non-violent. And non-interference with the performance of ICE duties, physically, non-interference, non-violence, that has to be the message to everyone, not only in Los Angeles, but all around the country. That's the bedrock principle of the First Amendment, non-violent protest without interference in governmental functions physically.
You can ask anybody from Oklahoma, if we had this going on, which it wouldn't take place because I think we'd be handling it ourselves. But if it was going on in our state, without question. The thing that you would have, though, is that our governor, Governor Stitt, would be working hand in glove with the White House, saying, "Hey, I need all the resources I can." Why isn't Governor Newsom doing that? I mean, it's when you see them burning cars, sitting on top of cop cars, waving a foreign flag, that's a problem. That's a huge problem. Why wouldn't you want every resource available to you to restore law and order to your state and to your city? It's dumbfounding to think that the leadership, be it the mayor or the governor of the state or the city, doesn't want the resources that we have at our fingertips and they have at their fingertips.
I think it's appalling to see the Democrats abdicate their responsibility for law and order. I think it's another reason why you're seeing a demise of the Democrat brand around the country, is that you got city on fire, you got people marching with foreign flags, people marching with a Mexican flag in LA, resisting federal law, interfering with federal law. You have the governor and the mayor, both Democrats, saying they will interfere and will not uphold federal law. Most of these things were decided at the time of the Civil War. They were particularly decided in the Civil Rights era when the federal government went into states that wouldn't enforce federal law on allowing students to go to school together. So I think that there is a role for the federal government. Frankly, if the local government, are we going to wait till the LA looks like Minneapolis? I don't love the idea of having national troops there, but what do you do if the local people won't uphold the law and the local officials actively resisting the federal law? It's a problem.
I think the president believes he's got to, put all these resources to be able to stop this violence. And look, it's not stopping. I mean, there's, and the local, the state and federal, the state and local government's not stopping all this violence. So the president's unfortunately, the president's doing his job.
I'm proposing reforms to the Insurrection Act, which I did before the election. I'm reintroducing a bill that would severely and definitely limit the president's discretion. Right now, the president has virtually unbridled, unlimited discretion under the Insurrection Act. It ought to be contained and guardrailed. That's the purpose of the legislation I am introducing, with support among Democrats and I hope Republicans, because this kind of abuse of power could happen under a Democratic president as well as a Republican, and we ought to limit the insurrection powers to situations that are genuinely an emergency involving a rebellion or a situation of insurrection, true insurrection, that is beyond the powers of the local police. It ought to be a last resort, not a first one, which is what President Trump is making it. That's why we need to limit the unbridled powers under the Insurrection Act, which my reforms would do.